So recently I've been getting into My Hero Academia, and this left me thinking, what if I could combine the stories of My Hero Academia and Dragon Ball Super together? That is what we'll be exploring today. Let's get straight into the video. So, we start off at the end of the Tournament of Power. Universe 7 has won, and Android 17 is the last man standing in the arena. As we all know, he decides to restore all of the universes that were erased by Zeno. However, this led to certain complications. Instead of just 13 universes now, there were 26 universes. It turns out that some of the universes that Zeno erased a long time ago were also restored by this wish. Grand Priest was in deep thought. So he decides that he will consult the Zenos about this matter. After some discussion, Grand Priest finally comes to a conclusion. He tells Goku that representatives from each of the 12 universes will be sent to explore and observe these other universes for a 10-year time period. This left Goku shocked and stunned. 10 years was a long time. However, with courtesy of some angel magic, all representatives sent to the universe would not age during this 10-year time period, and they would be returned to the same time they left. And Grand Priest even gives them 1 year to say their farewells to their loved ones. And now, the moral arc will begin. The moral arc quickly takes place during this 1 year time period. And now, we finally get to the time where they leave to the MHA universe. So, who would go to this universe? Of course, we have the entire Sun family, minus Videl and Pan. Gohan was specifically interested because he was a scholar and was very interested in the multiversal theory, and he thinks that studying other universes could lead him to certain conclusions. Meanwhile, Bulma was also super interested as well. He wonders what technologies these other universes offer and whether she can combine her technology with those other technologies. And she also forces Vegeta and Trunks to come along. Now, Grand Priest suddenly appears out of nowhere, ready to transport them to the other universe. He teleports them into one of the cities and tells them that their main goal was to analyze and find out why the mortal levels were so low. Grand Priest gives them a key and some cash, only enough to sustain them for a year, and then leaves them in this unknown universe. Goku was pumped up and excited. He wonders whether there were any strong people there that he could fight. So, Grand Priest drops them off around 1 year before the entrance exam into UA. So, Chi-Chi obviously still forces Goten to study and decides why not enroll Goten into a school. So, Goten actually ends up being classmates with Midoriya and Bakugo. As Goten enters the classroom, Goten greets his new classmates. So, Goten's quirk is super strength, super speed, and super endurance. However, this means that Goten can't turn Super Saiyan or fly because it doesn't align with his quirk. During his time as a student, Goten actually makes friends with Midoriya, and they hit it up pretty well and are able to converse with each other. Of course, this is a time where Midoriya is training under All Might. Midoriya tells Goten about the school he wants to enter, UA, and Goten decides that he wants to enter the UA as well. I mean, he has nothing else to do in this universe, and this would serve as a pretty good main objective. Of course, Bakugo isn't particularly happy about this, but it's not like he has anything he can do to stop Goten. Of course, Goten tells this to Trunks as well, and Trunks decides that he will want to try for the entrance exam as well. Chi actually encourages this behavior, as he realizes that pro hero equals money, and they don't even have enough money to sustain them for 10 years. Of course, Bulma also continues her own business, selling capsules and other things from Capsule Corporation, and she earns a lot of money. She also wants to see whether she can combine the technology from the different worlds together to make new products. Of course, Goku and Vegeta also continue their training. One day in school, Goten talks to Midoriya about Ki, and Midoriya is actually really interested about this. So Midoriya actually follows Goten home one day after school and meets Goku. Goku wants to teach Midoriya how to use Ki, but Gohan steps in. Gohan tells Goku that the Grand Priest has told them not to teach anyone how to use Ki, because this could potentially throw off this world's history. So Gohan decides that instead of teaching him how to use Ki, how about he teach him the academic knowledge behind Ki. So Gohan sits down on the sofa and talks to Midoriya about Ki. And after Midoriya leaves, Midoriya was thinking whether he could improve his own Ki somehow and become even stronger so that he wouldn't let down All Might. During a conversation with All Might during his training, Midoriya accidentally spills out the idea of Ki to All Might, and All Might is very interested in this concept. If what Gohan says is true, then if he could harness his own Ki, he could still be a pro hero even after he loses One for All, and still could continue being the symbol of peace to the people in the universe. And now, finally, Chi decides that she would take the family's livelihood into her own hands. She has decided that she would step up and become a professional hero in order to earn money for her family. After learning more about the topic of Ki, let's just call All Might Yagi Toshinori for now. Yagi asks Gohan whether enhancing his Ki would help make his weak body stronger. He shows Gohan his severe injury and tells him that this was inflicted by a villain during his days as a hero. He neglects to tell them about his real hero identity as All Might, as this was not a safe topic to talk about. Gohan ponders and thinks that learning more about Ki and enhancing the power of Ki in his body would probably be able to make his weak body stronger. And Goku, who was listening to all this, sympathized and empathized with All Might. After all, if he had been injured by a villain permanently and couldn't fight, he would be sad as hell. So he finally made up his mind and decided that he wanted to train All Might. He approaches Gohan about this, but Gohan argues with Goku. They weren't even supposed to tell anyone about Ki, much as teach them. This was what Grand Priest had specified right before they left, that they were not to make significant changes that could affect this world. However, Goku was insistent in this matter. Eventually, Gohan finally relents, not wanting to deal with his father's stubborn nature. Goku walks over to Toshinori and tells Toshinori that they will be starting their training right away. Goku takes a good look at Toshinori, noting his frail and weak body, and knows that Toshinori is likely not able to handle the severe intensity of gravity training. Instead, he tells Toshinori that they will be doing some meditation instead, and he will teach Toshinori how to harness the Ki in his body and use it. After a week passes by, Toshinori realizes that he had made good progress. In fact, he thought that the idea of Ki sounded a lot like the idea of One for All. Both were energy stores in his body, and his experience with using One for All had allowed him to pick up Ki usage very fast. Goku was pretty impressed as well. He didn't have a student that could pick up Ki as fast as All Might did. But that's enough talking about All Might. Let's move on to the actual storyline. Midoriya, due to his own training with Ki, manages to enhance his physical capabilities to a larger extent, and All Might deemed him ready around 1 month before the UA entrance exam, as he tells Midoriya to eat a piece of his hair. Of course, Midoriya didn't want to, but All Might forces it down his throat, allowing Midoriya to inherit his power of One for All. After a full month with practicing with All Might's One for All quirk, Midoriya could use it at about 3%. However, when he was using it, he still felt like he was very unstable, and he still couldn't really control the power very well. However, his experience with training his own body's ki allowed him to pick up on it slightly faster, even though he was relatively new to both different concepts. Finally, it is the day of the UA entrance exam, the day that decides Midoriya's fate. Despite being slightly nervous, Midoriya was excited. He wanted to see how his training had turned out and how he will be able to fare against other participants in this exam. Midoriya was walking happily over to the UA entrance exam area. He was walking together with Goten and Trunks, and he has actually never met Trunks before today, but he seems like a pretty nice guy and was even willing to be friends with him. However, in all his excitement, Midoriya accidentally stumbles on the stair and almost falls flat on his face. Goten and Trunks couldn't react fast enough to catch Midoriya. However, suddenly a person slaps him on the wrist and he started levitating. This person was none other than Uraruka Ochako, who had just saved him using her zero gravity quirk. She greets him and then walks away into the area for the briefing, and Midoriya was just shocked that a girl was actually willing to talk to him. After the written exam portion, which Midoriya was pretty confident about, it was now time for the practical exam portion. Midoriya was scared as hell. He didn't know how he was going to perform against the robots. And as soon as the exam started, Midoriya was already falling behind. Everyone else was ready besides him. Midoriya rushes forward with 3% of One for All as he pummels different robots over and over again. However, the time was slowly ticking down, and Midoriya only had 15 points. This was when he saw a girl trapped under the rubble, the same girl that prevented him from falling flat on his face about few hours back. That was Uraruka Ochako. Normally, being trapped under a pile of rubber wouldn't be that bad, but there was a 0-pointer hovering right above her, about to smash her into 1,000 different pieces. Midoriya's body reacted on its own as he rushed towards Uraruka, lunging into the air using 100% of One for All, effectively completely breaking his legs as he lunges a powerful punch on the 0-pointer, causing the 0-pointer to explode and causing Midoriya to plummet towards the ground. Midoriya had no way to stop his fall, and as he was about to meet his end, Uraruka slaps him on his hand, causing him to float once again. And then Uraruka releases her quirk as they both collapse to the ground, exhausted and injured, with Uraruka vomiting all over the floor. Meanwhile, at the other practical exam arena, Trunks was having a blast. He was just flying around destroying robots in his way with ease, and he had gotten over 120 points in the first minute of the practical exam, and that was just him holding back most of his power. Meanwhile, below Trunks, a certain someone was seething in anger. The practical exam had just ended, and he knew that he had lost the number 1 spot in the UA entrance exam. This person was none other than Bakugo. Bakugo saw Trunks get nearly 300 points during the UA entrance exam, with him only getting a mere 75. That was pathetic. To him, he should have been the indisputable number 1. However, he was just beaten by some random kid. After the entrance exam, Bakugo returns home as he takes up his pen and signs up for quirk strengthening as well as martial arts classes. He wouldn't allow anyone to surpass him. So together, Goten, Trunks and Midoriya walked together to classroom 1A. Midoriya walks in the classroom and is greeted with a familiar sight of Bakugo putting his leg on the chair and being reprimanded by some random guy with glasses that he remembered to be called 10-year leader. Midoriya didn't really know what to say. This was kinda familiar, a comforting way. However, right behind him, he realizes someone was calling out his name. This person was none other than Uraraka Ochako, the person he had saved during the entrance exam. However, their reunion was rudely interrupted by a man with black clothes and a captured tape wound around his shoulders. This person was known as Aizawa and tells them to go over to the gym area right now to have their quirks tested out. From their first interaction, Midoriya could immediately tell that Aizawa was a no-nonsense kind of teacher, and Aizawa decided to prove his point by threatening them with expulsion. Of course, this leaves the whole class shocked. Could the teacher even do that? That's kinda unfair. But Aizawa just ignores them. In the original canon events, Bakugo is the one who does the ball test first because he scored first in the entrance exam. However, in this case, Bakugo didn't score first. It was Goten and Trunks. So Aizawa calls Trunks up for the ball throwing test, and Trunks was very happy to oblige. Of course, he knew he had to hold back severely. However, he still wanted to have some fun and see the shocked expressions on his classmates' faces. And he ends up throwing the ball high up into the sky, the ball flying all the way until it couldn't be seen. Aizawa holds up the monitor 2,000 meters. Trunks had just thrown the ball so far. Everyone else was shocked beyond disbelief, except Goten obviously, who wasn't really impressed with Trunks' result. Midoriya himself was shocked as well. He knew that Trunks was a capable individual, but all he knew about Trunks was that he was Goten's friend. He didn't know much else about him. Looks like he had a powerful strength enhancement quirk as well. Bakugo was pissed off. As we all know, his inferiority complex started when Trunks beat him in the entrance exam, and looked like Trunks was gonna beat him once more here. So for the first test, a 50-meter dash, Midoriya used 3% of 1 for all as he rushes forward and finishes the test pretty quickly right behind Bakugo. Bakugo looked at Midoriya in surprise and anger at the same time. Had this nerd been hiding his quirk from him this entire time? Bakugo tries to leap at Midoriya, but Aizawa holds him back. He was gonna pay for this. Bakugo tries to run free from Aizawa's grip. However, suddenly he couldn't even use his quirk. Midoriya immediately realizes who this Aizawa person was. He was Eraserhead, the erasing hero. Fortunately for Bakugo, Aizawa wasn't standing down, so Bakugo was forced to let go of his grudge against Midoriya for now. So Bakugo ends up going for the ball throw next after Trunks and actually throws 750 meters instead of 705.2 meters, which was his original record in the original canon of events. This was because he had more training with his quirk due to motivation from seeing Trunks perform so well during the Yuri entrance exam. Meanwhile, the event where Aizawa threatens Midoriya also doesn't happen because Midoriya already has a decent control of his quirk. And this time, instead of throwing a 705.3 meters, Midoriya throws a respectable 250 meters because he doesn't want to injure himself using his quirk during a school event. So now these are the original placings for the original canon quirk explanation test. However, a huge change will be undergone here, with Goten and Trunks coming in first and second respectively, Momo in third, Bakugo in fourth, actually overtaking Todoroki Shoto, and 6th, 10-year leader, Midoriya in 11th, and everyone just moves down one place. One thing I forgot to mention on the last part is that Mineta never gets in the class 1A due to Goten and Trunks actually taking his position. Anyways, let's move on. As usual, on his first day in UA, Midoriya actually makes pretty good friends with Uraruka and Lida, as they hit it off pretty well. Of course, this time around, Goten and Trunks are there as well, so this is a bit awkward. Anyways, let's just continue. So the next main event in UA is of course the Battle Trial arc held by All Might. As usual, they will go to ground beta to have their test, and the first fight is obviously between Bakugo, Lida, Midoriya and Uraruka. Unfortunately for Midoriya, Bakugo had trained more with his quirk this time around, and even though Midoriya already has full cowling at 3%, Bakugo's skill just proved to be superior, as he expertly dodges Midoriya's blows and immediately catches him with a capture tape. Just like that, Midoriya was subdued, and Bakugo had won. Of course, Uraruka still wasn't captured yet, but that was just a matter of time with Midoriya out of the picture. As 10-year leader distracts Uraruka, Bakugo knocks her down from behind, allowing them to win. Midoriya, of course, was reasonably disappointed. However, he just told himself he was gonna work even harder to catch up to Bakugo. Meanwhile, Todoroki shows off his dominance as he completely obliterates Shoji and Hagakure in just one ice. Obviously, out of everyone here, he still had the most experience. Meanwhile, Goten and Trunks actually duke it out in one of the battle trials, and All Might notices that they may even be stronger than him in terms of their raw quirk strength. However, he could tell that they both lacked experience, choosing to just barge in and attack instead of thinking strategically, which was something he needed to fix. Anyways, let's move on. With the battle trial covered, we will now go into the USJ arc. The start of the USJ arc proceeds as normal with the class meeting Space Hero 13, a prominent rescue hero. However, their class was interrupted by the League of Villains coming up from a huge purple misty portal near the center of the USJ. Two very powerful figures stood there, one with hands all around his face and one with a weird looking brain sticking out. Aizawa and 13 looked at each other, realizing that All Might not being here was a terrible consequence. Goten and Trunks, however, were excited. This was their first time fighting villains. Unfortunately for them, they were all still scattered by Kurogi's misty portal, with Goten and Trunks being split up as well. Trunks ends up finding himself replacing Minato Moru's original place in the flood zone together with Sui and Midoriya. Meanwhile, Goten finds himself in the landslide zone together with one of the strongest students in Class 1A, Todoroki Shoto. Most of the events in the USJ arc proceed as normal, with 13 facing off against Kurogiri. As we all know, Kurogiri has many tricks up his sleeve, and 13 is not a combat fighter. So Kurogiri uses 13's own quirk against 13, causing 13 to be gravely injured and at the brink of death. So we move back into the flooded zone, and with Trunks aiding Sui and Midoriya here is not even a challenge. Trunks is simply too strong. So Trunks just ends up flying around, knocking all the villains, and it's just that simple. Trunks is too strong. So we move over to the Wasteland Zone. In the original canon of events, Todoroki was already dominating the villains here, and with Goten there, it's even more of a wash. Todoroki just freezes all the villains, Goten takes care of the remaining villains, and honestly, Goten is actually pretty impressed with Todoroki. And honestly, Todoroki is also pretty impressed with Goten, though he doesn't really say that out loud. Goten was really strong, he could tell, and he could tell that Goten had a lot of combat experience as well. And then we move off into the zone where Bakugo and Kirishima are destroying the villains as usual. Nothing really goes differently here, just that Bakugo has more experience, so the villains are more easily taken care of. So we move over to the central area of USJ. 10-year leader manages to escape as usual, allowing him to go and inform the UA teachers of this incident. Aizawa as usual faces off against Shigaraki, and Aizawa is not suited for group fights, so Shigaraki takes the opportunity and decays Aizawa's arm. It was a painful sight, and Aizawa will struggle here. Though Aizawa does land a pretty clean blow on Shigaraki. However, Shigaraki is completely fine. Aizawa doesn't have any strength enhancements anyways. As Aizawa continues to struggle, Shigaraki decides to call in the big guns, aka his Nomu, his pet Nomu. And the Nomu immediately runs forward and completely batters Aizawa, knocking his head onto the floor, crushing his bones, completely destroying Aizawa. Aizawa was completely out of commission at this point, gravely injured. He couldn't even move. This point in time is where the trio, Trunks, Midoriya, and Sui arrive on the scene. Trunks saw Aizawa in a precarious situation. There was no way he was going to hesitate any longer as he rushes forward at intense speed, completely knocking the Nomu away. The Nomu had half his body obliterated by Trunks' punch. He was kinda annoyed at this point. More cannon fodder to feed to his Nomu, well whatever. He tells the Nomu to just kill everyone at the scene right away, as the Nomu displays a shocking ability. The ability to regenerate, as he regenerates half his body almost instantaneously. This gives Trunks a bit of PTSD. I mean, remember a villain in the Buu saga that can, regenerate Super Buu, the one that turned them all into candy? Yeah, Trunks ain't having that. So Trunks immediately rushes forward again and knocks the normal away, this time with much more force, as he launches another Ki Blast straight towards the normal as the normal was flying away, and the Ki Blast explodes the normal in mid-air. The normal, just like that, it was completely wiped out and eradicated. Shigaraki was infuriated. Had his sensei lied to him? How could his pet normal, his trump card, how could he die just like that? Was this kid really that strong? As Shigaraki scratches his neck in anger, Trunks rushes forward and hands Aizawa over to Midoriya, telling Midoriya to take care of Aizawa as he rushes forward to take care of the remaining villains. However, before Trunks can rush to Shigaraki, Kurogiri has already whopped both him and Shigaraki away, recognizing Trunks as a huge threat. Just like that, Trunks has saved the day, and this is the point where All Might arrives and realizes, well, there wasn't much work to do, just some remaining weak villains that even the students could take care of. Rest of the UA reinforcements arrive as well with 10-year leader and just cleans up the rest of the mess. Back in the bar where Shigaraki and Kurogiri await Sensei's orders, Shigaraki was lying on the floor, pissed off. Had his sensei lied to him? Wasn't his normal supposed to take down All Might, and yet it was defeated by a mere student? And honestly, All For One is pretty intrigued. This Trunks was really strong for his age. Looks like he had to make a few changes to his plans as he smiles devilishly. And this is where we'll leave off for now. What plans does All For One have for Trunks now that Trunks has revealed that he was supremely strong? Will Trunks be able to survive All For One's plans? Will Trunks best All For One? Or will All For One's plans come to fruition? Well, these are all questions we'll answer in the next part on What if Dragon Ball Super met My Hero Academia.